Dad didn't yell. He never had to. He just looked across the dinner table, cut me off mid-sentence, and said 11 words that cracked something open inside me. You'll always come second to your sister. That's just how it is. The room went silent. Jessica smirked over her wine. I just smiled cold, small, and nodded like I'd finally heard the truth I'd spent my life pretending wasn't real. That night, I went home, opened my banking app, and canceled every transfer I'd been sending him. 3 years of quiet help, gone with one swipe. He didn't know it yet, but that click was the sound of the ground shifting. But what they didn't know was, before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by your own family. Because this isn't just a story about money or favoritism. It's about the moment you realize blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. And what happens when the quiet one finally decides to stop paying for peace. If you'd met my family years ago, you'd think we were picture perfect. A dad who worked hard, a sister who smiled like she was born for the spotlight, and me, the dependable one holding the camera. What the photo never showed was who took the picture, who never made it into the frame. Mom left when I was 12. No screaming, no lawyers, just a note on the fridge between the grocery list and a coupon for frozen pizza. I'm sorry, Richard. I can't do this anymore. Her handwriting looked rushed, the kind you use when you've already packed the car. When Dad came home from work, he didn't cry. He just stared at the note, then poured himself a drink. That night, I heard the sound of him tearing something our family photo from last Christmas. Jessica was 14, old enough to cry the kind of tears people rush to comfort. I was 12, old enough to understand silence. After that, Dad wrapped his guilt around her like armor. She's fragile, he said. You have to be the strong one. And I believed him. Every time she slammed her door, I learned to knock softer. We weren't poor, not exactly. But there were weeks when the fridge light shone brighter than the food inside. Dad worked construction site manager. Long hours, loud voice, hands cracked from cement dust. He liked things simple. Dinner at 6, TV at 8, feelings buried deep. When Jessica got the lead in the school musical, he took off work to see her. When I won first place at the county science fair, he forgot to show. He called it bad timing. I called it a pattern. I still remember that summer, sticky heat, the hum of a broken fan. Jessica had her friends over for pool day. I was patching the leak in Dad's shed roof because he'd slipped a disc the week before. Sweat burned my eyes, tar stuck to my fingers. From the backyard, I heard Jess laughing bright, careless. Dad's voice joined hers, proud and booming. He called her champ. He'd never called me anything like that. But I didn't complain. I just worked harder. It was the only language he understood. By high school, I was the quiet achiever, good grades, part-time job at a computer repair shop. I saved every dollar. Jessica bounced between cheerleading and heartbreak. Every time a boy hurt her, Dad turned into a soldier. Once, he drove across town, just to have a talk with a kid who ghosted her after homecoming. A week later, I came home with a split lip after getting jumped behind the gym. Dad looked up from his paper and said, "You'll be fine. You're tougher than that." I believed him again, even when it stung. When I got a scholarship to college, he nodded like I'd told him the weather. Jessica got accepted to an art program. He threw a barbecue. The night before I left, I fixed the porch light that had been flickering for months. Dad didn't notice. Jessica did. She asked if I could paint her dorm room when I visited. College was the first time I felt like I could breathe. I studied IT, fell in love with logic, clean, predictable, nothing like family. I still came home on breaks, always with groceries or gas money I couldn't spare. I told myself it was duty, not guilt. When Dad's car battery died one winter, I sent him the replacement. When the roof leaked again, I hired someone to fix it. When Jessica dropped out of her art program to find herself, I found another job to help cover Dad's mortgage. He never asked, not directly. He just sighed at the bills, rubbed his temples, and said, "Guess it'll work out somehow." Somehow was me. After graduation, I landed a steady job at a consulting firm downtown. First decent paycheck. I bought a used laptop and a better jacket. By 25, I'd saved enough for a down payment. A duplex, not fancy, but solid. One side for me, the other rented out. A safety net, I thought. I didn't know then it would turn into a battleground. I remember the day I signed the papers. The agent smiled, said, "Feels good, doesn't it?" It did. I felt like maybe I'd finally stepped out of my father's shadow. But even shadows follow you home. Every Sunday, I still visited. Dad would grumble about the news. Jessica would talk about her projects. That's what she called her hobbies: painting, yoga, blogging. When social media took off, she found her calling posting pictures of scented candles and smoothies. She called herself a wellness creator. Dad called it entrepreneurial. I called it whatever kept the peace. One Christmas, she gave him a mug that said "World's Greatest Dad." I gave him a new set of tools. He opened hers first. I thought maybe things would change once she moved out, but instead, she moved back in. "Just for a bit," she said, "until my brand takes off." It never did. But somehow, Dad kept believing. Then came the years of quiet support. I paid half the mortgage without fanfare, sent monthly transfers labeled utilities or maintenance. He never said thank you, but he stopped complaining about bills. I took that as gratitude. I told myself I was doing the right thing, being the better son. I didn't see how that belief was slowly turning into a leash around my neck. There were small moments I should have noticed. A Thanksgiving dinner where Jessica announced she'd landed a collaboration, whatever that meant. Dad toasted to her success. I brought the turkey. No one mentioned it. Another night, I mentioned a big project at work. Dad interrupted to say Jess might start a podcast. Little cuts. Death by 1,000 quiet dismissals. But I kept showing up. Every Sunday. Every call. Because maybe, just maybe, if I kept giving, he'd finally see me. He never did. And yet, there were times I still hoped. Like the night he called. Voice softer than usual. "Hey, kid. Roof's leaking again." I smiled. Said, "I'll handle it." He said, "You're a good son." I almost believed him. I didn't know it back then. But that sentence, "you're a good son," would become a weapon later. I worked, saved, helped. My duplex tenant moved out, and I thought I'd take a break before renting again. Maybe renovate, maybe breathe. That's when Jessica showed up on my doorstep with boxes. But that's another part of the story. Before the storm, there's always quiet. And in that quiet, I built a life I thought was stable. A job, a home, a sense of control. I didn't realize how fragile it all was. How much of it depended on people who never saw me as anything more than a backup plan. There's this memory I can't shake me. 14. Watching Dad polish his old Mustang in the driveway. The car gleamed like it had feelings. He never let me drive it. When I asked why, he said, "You don't take risks with the things you care about." Then he handed the keys to Jessica so she could take a prom photo in the driver's seat. I laughed it off, but the sound lodged somewhere deep, like a splinter I could never pull out. I guess I grew up thinking if I worked hard enough, I'd earn the keys. Turns out, some doors were never meant to open. Still, I kept knocking. I fixed, paid, and smiled my way through decades of imbalance, never realizing the bill for that silence would come due one day. And when it did, it arrived all at once. It started with a knock on my door and ended with the 11 words that changed everything. I didn't know it back then. I whisper sometimes. But all of it, every quiet favor, every swallowed insult was leading here. To the moment I stopped being the good son. It started small, most disasters do. Jessica showed up one Thursday afternoon, hair in a messy bun, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She was holding 2 cardboard boxes and a half-empty iced latte. "Hey," she said, brushing past me like she lived there. Dad said I could crash in the empty unit for a bit. I blinked. "Crash? Jess, that's my rental." "Yeah, but it's empty." She dropped the boxes onto the counter, exhaling dramatically. "The downtown place? My sublease got cut short. Legal stuff. I don't know. Anyway, this works out perfect." I leaned against the doorway. "You didn't even ask me." She smiled, bright but hollow. "I'm your sister, Dan. You're not gonna let me be homeless, are you?" "You're not homeless," I said. "You could stay with Dad." Her smile faltered. "You know that house is falling apart. The AC barely works." "Yeah," I said evenly, "because I stopped paying for it." That shut her up. She blinked, confusion crossing her face. "Wait, you paid for the AC?" "For 3 years," I said. "The mortgage, too. Half of it. You never knew because he never told you." "Ah." She laughed a quick, nervous sound. "Why would you even do that?" "Because someone had to." For a second, she looked guilty. Then she rolled her eyes. That's between you and Dad. Don't drag me into your little hero complex. I picked up her boxes and carried them back to the door. You're not moving in, Jess. Not today. Not ever. She crossed her arms. Wow, you've really changed. Money made you cold. No, I said, opening the door. Years of being used did. She left with a scoff that echoed long after the door closed. That night, my phone lit up with a message from Dad. You had one chance to do the right thing by your sister. I hope you're proud of yourself. No greeting. No gratitude. Just guilt, sharpened like a blade. I didn't reply. 2 days later, the bank called. Mr. Harris, the rep said, we received an inquiry about refinancing your duplex. I just wanted to confirm if that came from you. My stomach dropped. It didn't. The rep hesitated. That's what we thought. It came from your father's IP address. I froze. Can you lock everything down? Already done. But you might want to talk to him. I didn't. Instead, I stared at my ceiling that night, listening to the quiet hum of my own house, the house I'd built alone, and wondered how far they'd go to keep me as their safety net. By the next week, the tension was tangible. Dad left 2 voicemails, both angrier than the last. You're blowing things out of proportion, he said. It's just family business. Jess needed help. Help. That word again. Always from me, never for me. I ignored the calls. But then came the text from Ryan, my friend from college. Hey, man, you free for lunch tomorrow? I need to show you something. We met at a downtown cafe, sunlight slanting through the window, smell of burnt espresso in the air. Halfway through our sandwiches, Ryan paused mid-bite and pointed out the window. Isn't that your sister? I turned. There she was, Jessica, sitting at a patio table with a cameraman filming her. She had a microphone clipped to her dress, coffee in hand, smiling like she was born under a spotlight. Behind her, a banner flapped lightly in the breeze. Urban Retreats by Jess Wellness, Experiences and Short-Term Stays. My patio. My furniture. My duplex. Ryan whistled low. Man, she's got some nerve. I stood up, walked outside. She noticed me, froze for a beat, then plastered on a smile. Oh, hey, want to be in the video? What is this? I asked, pointing to the banner. She waved a hand. Just a promo thing. I'm launching a wellness retreat series. You know, pop-up experiences, brand partnerships, all that. Here? At my property? Relax, she said. It's just for show. Dad said you'd understand. Did he also say I'd pay for the lawsuits when someone falls on the porch? Her smile tightened. You're being negative again, Dan. That's why people don't get you. I stared at her, the air between us brittle. You have no idea what you've done. She tilted her head, smug. Actually, I think I do. I'm building something real. I walked away before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, I drafted a cease and desist letter. Not out of spite, out of survival. But before I sent it, I checked my email and found something new. 2 local lifestyle blogs had posted articles praising Jessica Harris, the rising entrepreneur behind Urban Retreats. Both pieces mentioned the same detail. The family co-signed the property under her business name. Co-signed. It wasn't just delusion, it was fraud. I printed the articles, lined them up on my kitchen table, and stared until the words blurred. Somewhere between disbelief and fury, I started to laugh. It wasn't humor, it was the kind of sound you make when you realize the people you love most see you as an ATM with a pulse. The next morning, I called Andrew, my old college friend turned property lawyer. I need help, I said. He asked one question. Do you have proof? Oh, I said, smiling for the first time in days. I have everything. Andrew didn't flinch. He just said, then you've got leverage. We met at his downtown office that Friday, a narrow space that smelled like paper and burnt coffee. He brought in his paralegal, and together we built a timeline: every receipt, every bank transfer, every email I'd ever sent Dad about repairs. Then Andrew opened the 2 blog articles on his monitor. She's not just exaggerating, he said. She's misrepresenting ownership of a private asset. And if she's been hosting paid guests, she has, I said, sliding my phone across the desk. Screenshots of her Instagram stories filled the screen. Pastel filters. Yoga mats. Captioned, first weekend retreat sold out. Andrew exhaled through his nose. Then she's in violation of zoning and tax laws. Potential liability. 2. I nodded slowly. Good. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. You want to scare her? Or bury her? I stared at the glowing monitor, my reflection split by the cursor. Neither, I said. I want her to see herself burn down her own stage. He smiled just a hint. Then we'll do it by the book. That night, I built a burner email. Something clean and believable. Using it, I reached out to Urban Retreats by Jess, pretending to be a small wellness blog interested in featuring her work. Within hours, she replied warm, eager, careless. Hi love. So excited to collaborate, she wrote, followed by a heart emoji. Our September retreat is almost full 3 nights, guided journaling. Yoga, all meals included, $549 per guest. 8 guests, in a 2-bedroom duplex. My duplex. I asked for photos of the space. She sent the same ones from the article: my kitchen, my patio, my furniture. Each image had a pastel watermark. Urban Retreats by Jess. Then she sent a payment form. Not a business processor. Not even PayPal. Her personal Venmo. Profile pic. Her in a lotus pose. Sparkles floating around her name. I sat back and stared at the screen. It was almost impressive, the confidence, the stupidity. I saved everything. Screenshots, metadata, timestamps. Forwarded it all to Andrew. He replied within minutes. Perfect. Keep everything offline. We'll file soon. The next week, I said nothing. No calls, no texts, no confrontations. I just worked, ate, slept, and waited. But someone beat me to the first punch. Tuesday morning, Andrew called. Did you file a complaint with the city? No. Why? Because one just appeared: anonymous zoning violation. Someone reported an unlicensed commercial property operating under your address. I froze. You think it's her neighbors? Could be anyone. But the city's already investigating. For the first time in months, I felt a sliver of luck. 2 days later, Jessica posted another promo, this time celebrating the power of family. Her caption read, "My dad believed in my dream before anyone else did. Couldn't have done this without his support. Number family first. Number Urban Retreats." I showed it to Andrew. He laughed under his breath. She just implicated him. 2. The walls were closing in, and she didn't even see it. Still, I wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. I wanted her words, her arrogance, to do the work for me. So I fed her another email from the fake blog, asking for a quote about her business model. She replied within the hour, gushing about family investments and turning a fixer-upper into a creative haven. Her own confession, in writing. I built a simple webpage, clean design, soft fonts, fake testimonials, and posted her interview with every incriminating quote intact. Then I sent the link anonymously to 3 local small business newsletters, 2 lifestyle bloggers, and the city's compliance office. I didn't include a single lie. I didn't have to. That weekend, she celebrated with a champagne post caption, "Too powerful to be stopped." The photo showed her clinking glasses with 2 friends on my porch. I didn't comment. I didn't message. I just waited. Monday morning, my inbox pinged. A new message, subject line, "Cease and desist. Order City of Brookdale Residential Compliance." Addressed to Jessica Harris. Copied to me as property owner. The city had cited her for operating an unlicensed commercial business from a residential property. She had 10 days to comply or face a $5,000 fine. I leaned back in my chair, heart steady for the first time in weeks. She'd done it. She'd built the fire herself. By evening, her Instagram went dark. No posts, no stories, no apologies, just silence. For days, I heard nothing from her or Dad. Then, out of nowhere, a voicemail from Richard. His voice was thick, tired. "Son, maybe we can talk about this. Jess is upset. She says she didn't mean any harm." I deleted it without listening to the rest. Because harm was exactly the point. That night, I sat on my back patio, the same one she'd used for her photo shoots, and watched the porch light across the yard flicker on and off. I thought of all the years I'd kept their lights on, literally and figuratively. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for letting one go dark. What I didn't know then was that the silence wouldn't last. The storm was just catching its breath. The city's cease and desist should have been the ending. But in my family, endings never come clean. 2 weeks later, I was fixing coffee in my kitchen when someone knocked. 3 slow thuds, heavy, deliberate. I opened the door and found Dad standing there. He looked smaller than I remembered, shirt wrinkled, eyes rimmed red. The smell of cheap whiskey lingered on his breath. "Dan," he said quietly, "we need to talk." I didn't move. "About what?" "The illegal business you both ran out of my house?" He flinched. "She made a mistake. She made money off my name, off my property, off every bill I paid while you looked the other way." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I didn't know it had gone that far." "Yes, you did," I said. "You just didn't want to stop her." He tried to step inside. I didn't let him. For a second, the old tension filled the air, the kind that smelled like motor oil and regret. "I came to apologize," he said finally. "I thought protecting her would fix things. By sacrificing me?" He looked at the ground. "When your mom left, Jess broke. She cried every night. I didn't know how to help her. You were quiet, focused. I thought you didn't need me." "I did," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "You just never asked." The silence between us was raw. He swallowed hard. "She's lost everything. Sponsors, followers, even her friends disappeared. She's been staying at my place again. That's not my problem anymore. She asked me to co-sign a loan," he said. "Said she needed to rebuild." I barked a laugh. "Bitter?" "Of course she did." "Did you?" He hesitated. "No." That word landed like a stone. "I told her," he continued, "if she wants to build something this time, she'll do it on her own. No shortcuts. No more using your name." For the first time, he looked ashamed. "She screamed at me. Said I was just like you." I folded my arms. "That's the nicest thing she's ever said about me." He almost smiled, then let it fade. "I know I can't undo what I did. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I studied him, the man who taught me silence, who'd built walls out of pride and called them protection. He looked tired, human. "Apology accepted," I said. "But forgiveness isn't free. It takes time." He nodded, eyes wet. "Fair enough." He turned to leave, then stopped at the steps. "You know, that old Mustang still runs." "Good for it," I said. He gave a faint chuckle. "Maybe one day, you'll take it for a drive." "Maybe." When the door closed, I stood there for a long minute, heart pounding slow and steady. Later that night, I opened my laptop. The browser was still on the article I'd sent the city, Jessica's words glowing in black and white. My family invested in my dream. The irony hit me harder than I expected. We all had, just not in the way she meant. I drafted one final email to Andrew. "Everything's resolved. No lawsuits. Thank you." He replied with 2 words, "You did good." But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like release. Still, the story wasn't done. The next morning, my phone buzzed Ryan again. "Dude, check this out." He sent a link. Jessica's social pages were back online. Same smiling face, new handle. At Jess Rebuilds. Her caption read, "Starting over is hard, but the universe always gives second chances." The comments were brutal, half pity, half mockery. Someone even posted the city fine screenshot. She tried to delete it, but the internet never forgets. I stared at her profile, picture filtered, flawless, and realized I didn't feel angry. Just tired. Later that week, Uncle Ed called. "Your dad told me what happened," he said. "About time someone said no to him. You know, he called me last month asking for a loan. I told him to sell his car." I laughed softly. "He'd never do that." "Maybe not then," Ed said, "but he might now." After the call, I stepped out to the patio. The night was cool, the kind of quiet that hums in your bones. Across the street, the light on Dad's porch was off. Mine was on. I thought about all the years I'd spent keeping their lights burning, all the ways I'd mistaken obligation for love. Maybe revenge wasn't about hurting them. Maybe it was about turning off the switch and seeing what survived in the dark. And for once, the silence didn't ache. It felt clean. I poured myself a drink, nothing fancy, just something honest, and whispered to no one in particular. Let the record show I stopped paying. Because sometimes the most powerful strike isn't loud. It's the quiet click that ends the transaction. Revenge doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes, it looks like a spreadsheet. The week after Dad's visit, I made a list. Every joint account, every cosigner tie, every temporary favor I'd agreed to out of guilt. By Friday, they were all gone. My name, wiped clean from every liability. I called the bank first, closed the emergency line of credit. I said, yes, even if he needs it later. Then the utilities. Then the insurance policy I'd quietly been paying into for him since 2021. By the time I hung up, the house was finally mine fully. Legally. Emotionally. Next came the city filing. Andrew helped me draft a property boundary notice. Simple but powerful. A public record confirming my sole ownership, added to zoning files for future disputes. A quiet line in the sand that said, "This is mine, and no one touches it again." After that, I turned my focus inward. I rebuilt my consulting site from scratch, sleek, clean, confident. Added client testimonials, polished the brand, doubled my rates. People didn't flinch. By month's end, I was booked solid. I started therapy, too. First session felt strange talking about things I used to bury under to-do lists, but the therapist smiled and said, "You've been running a marathon on broken legs. Time to stop limping." At home, I began renovations on the rental unit. Not for guests, but for me to make something that felt alive again. Fresh paint, new floors, plants by the window. It smelled like cedar and freedom. When the first real tenants moved in, a painter named Maria and her girlfriend Heather, a therapist, the place finally felt warm. They laughed, cooked, played soft music that drifted through the walls. No fake branding, no filtered lies. Just life. Sometimes I'd sit on my patio at dusk, laptop open, coffee cooling beside me. Across the street, Dad's porch stayed dark. He'd text sometimes, "Hope you're doing okay." I'd read it, let it sit, then lock my phone. Because this time, I didn't owe anyone an answer. They thought they'd broken me. But really, they'd built me a weapon made of silence, paperwork, and peace. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, the one who gives, fixes, and forgives until there's nothing left, you're not alone. Sometimes, walking away isn't betrayal, it's survival. So if this story hit close to home, hit like, leave a comment, and tell me where you're watching from. Because stories like this about boundaries, truth, and finally choosing yourself, they don't end in silence. They start with someone saying, "Enough." And if you've ever had to start over from scratch, subscribe. This story isn't over.